GitHub Copilot for Enterprise, Stable Diffusion 3, the White House wants you to stop coding in C and C++, and a pick of the week that makes a hacker tool into a Nintendo Wii controller. All that and more on this episode of The Download. Welcome back to another episode of The Download. I'm your host, Christina Warren, Senior Developer Advocate at GitHub, and this is the show where we cover the latest developer news and open source projects. Please like and subscribe. And my shirt this week is from OpenAI's Dev Day back in November. And that was the Dev Day that took place like a week before that weird 5-day period where CEO Sam Altman was ousted as OpenAI's CEO, and then the internet, or at least my part of the internet, couldn't stop talking about it. Yeah, so that's where this is from. And if Sam had not been reappointed CEO, then this thing would probably be a collector's item. But as it stands, it's just a crew neck with a good story. So that's it. All right, we've got a ton of news to get into this week, so let's do that. All right, first things first, is that GitHub Copilot for Enterprise is now generally available. And I know that most of the people who are watching this are not the people making the purchasing decisions for the companies they work for, but if you do control enterprise spending, hi. But hopefully this is a tool that some of you might come across in your day job in the future. And so GitHub Copilot for Enterprise was announced back in November, and we've been testing it with select customers since then. And like I said, now it's generally available. And like GitHub Copilot and GitHub Copilot for Business, GitHub Copilot for Enterprise is your AI coding assistant, except now it can do some things that enterprise customers have been asking us for. And so that includes fine-tuned models based on your organization's code. And fine-tuning is actually going to be launching soon so that you can customize Copilot so that it's going to give you better results for your organization. But GitHub Copilot for Enterprise also integrates with github.com so that you can use the chat feature to ask questions about your code base or docs or knowledge base. And it can also be used with pull requests, basically to analyze their diffs in the PR so that reviews can happen more quickly and effectively. There are a lot of other features too. I've got links in the show notes and description to the blog post, the docs, and a great video that my pal Christopher made showing off GitHub Copilot for Enterprise. So check all that out down below. And speaking of fine-tuning and customization, Nicole Choi wrote a great blog post on the GitHub blog that covers a lot of the best practices around fine-tuning LLMs for your own needs, including what we do with GitHub Copilot for Enterprise. And so I've got that link down below too. While we're talking AI, let's talk about some of the announcements that have happened in the space over the last week. So first, Stability AI announced that Stable Diffusion 3 will be coming out soon. It's being tested in early access for now, but Stability AI says that it is committed to the open model. And similar to OpenAI's Sora, Imad, who's Stability AI's CEO, says that Stable Diffusion 3 uses a new type of diffusion transformer. And the results that are being shown off, and look, as always, these are going to be very cherry-picked to look as good as possible, but these results do look really, really good. And we'll be talking more about Stable Diffusion 3 and the various tools and front ends for that the community develops once it comes out. But I've got the Stability AI blog post linked down below, as well as some other statements that Imad has made on Twitter. And speaking of open models, Google announced Gemma, which is its family of lightweight, state-of-the-art open models that it says were built from the same research and technology that it used to create its commercial Gemini models. And similar to Meta's Llama models, these aren't strictly open source, but Google notes that the terms of use permit responsible commercial usage and distribution for all organizations, regardless of size. So that's really cool. So the models are available to download directly, or you can use them on Kaggle or Hugging Face. But the thing that might appeal to a lot of AI devs is the gemma.cpp, lightweight standalone C++ inference engine for Gemma that Google has released on GitHub. And gemma.cpp was inspired by tools like llama.cpp, which Andrej Karpathy created based on Meta's Llama models. And that has been implemented in dozens of tools. And so it was really cool to see something similar to this coming first party from Google. I really, really like that. And I expect tooling like Ollama and others to incorporate gemma.cpp in the future, which I think is fantastic. I've got links to Google's blog about Gemma, as well as gemma.cpp's repo down below. And honestly, I feel like the more open or open source models that we have, the better. So I really like seeing this. So kudos, Google. Speaking of C++, which is what Gemma CPP uses, The United States White House wants developers, or at least developers of government apps, to move away from C and C++ and embrace memory-safe programming languages like Rust or Go or Java instead. There's a whole government report about this too. It's from the White House Office of the National Cyber Director. And if you've heard about this, if you've heard about this report, it's probably because your friends who develop in Rust and insist on letting you know that they use Rust have sent you the link 500 times over the last few days. At least that's how I've heard about it. Look, I don't have any strong opinions about whether businesses should or should not use C or C++. I think for newer projects, it probably makes sense to use something, like Go or Rust or even C# or Java, just to get more modern tooling and frameworks. But I personally just find it very funny that a government report is out helping fan the flames of the language wars. I appreciate that. Anyway, I've got a link to that report down below if you want to give it a read or, use it to antagonize your non-Rust using friends. And now it's time for both my GitHub project spotlight and pick of the week all in one. So this time I want to highlight the Flipper Zero, which describes itself as a multi-tool device for geeks. And I've got one and I love it. And actually how Flipper Zero describes the device on their site is that it's a portable multi-tool for pen testers and geeks and a toy-like body. It loves hacking digital stuff such as radio protocols, access control systems, hardware, and more. It's fully open source and customizable, and you can extend it in whatever way you want. Like I said, I love mine, but what is even cooler is that there's a new video game module for the Flipper Zero powered by the Raspberry Pi. And with this module, you can create a Nintendo Wii-like controller for controlling games or other types of content you make, complete with a gyroscope and accelerometer. And the video game module is powered by the Raspberry Pi RP2040, which is the same thing that's in the Raspberry Pi Pico. And because of that lineage, there are already tons of open source games and tools that will work with it. And even better, Flipper Zero maintains a GitHub repo with firmware and tooling, and even a game engine. And their blog post points out the project Scopy, which turns the Raspberry Pi Pico into an oscilloscope. And that works with the video game module too. So I love that. I love projects and hardware like this. There are some legislators in some countries out there that are trying to shut things like this down, which I think is super lame. So I just wanted to highlight this device and the open source software around it because I think it's super cool. So I've got links to the Flipper Zero blog, their GitHub repo, and some other fun compatible projects in the show notes in the description. Have you used a Flipper Zero? If so, let me know your experiences in the comments or let me know what you think about anything else that we covered today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. That's going to do it for me. If you liked this episode, go ahead and give us a like. It helps the algorithm. And go ahead and subscribe to GitHub's YouTube channel for all of your nerd needs. See you next time.